Hello, last week I asked you to embrace being wrong and solicit feedback from your colleagues to collaborate with them to improve all aspects of your investment process. Now, how can you do that without groupthink? And what is groupthink? Now, unfortunately, there is a tendency for groups to make poor decisions. This is a well-documented phenomenon. All right. So what are kind of the results slash symptoms of groupthink? Right. So in a group, there is a tendency to overestimate kind of your power or the morale or your morality. Right. So when you have these symptoms, you'll find that you're excessively optimistic about your ideas and your projects. You're willing to take more risk than is probably prudent. You kind of ignore the consequences of your decisions from a morality standpoint. There's a lot of closed-mindedness. Um, your ideas are right. You kind of ignore or discount or rationalize maybe alternatives to your group as being inferior. And you might even actively attack the opposition in terms of people with different ideas. And then within the group, there is some pressure to conform to the ideas of the group. Maybe you have a different idea, but you'll self-censor yourself. You'll be afraid to speak out. If no one agrees or says anything, we'll just say, well, if no one's saying anything, then clearly they agree with me. There might be direct pressure to conform. Like you need to come on board with this idea, and you might even kind of, if there are ideas that would be different than yours, you won't even allow those in. You're going to block those things. And the end result is you don't have any true innovation. You don't have any true improvement. Now, what are the causes for this? The idea is that the group comes up with ideas, and there isn't any real true debate. There's no real critical evaluation because the group is so cohesive. They agree, and they like this cohesiveness, so they would rather agree than have some kind of conflict. Conflict is minimized. You're going to agree at all costs. The individual is kind of discounted. That the group is actually more important. The leader himself or herself is actually not impartial, so they already know what they want the ideas, and there's some pressure to have everyone else conform. There's a lack of diversification, so people's background, people's ideas, etc. And maybe there's a culture where if you fail, then your ideas are no longer really welcome. So you had an idea, it didn't work out. And so you're either pressured not to throw new ideas out there, either from others, or it's kind of the self-censorship. And sometimes there's so much going on that you don't feel like you have time to really properly vet an idea. All right. So you're thinking like, Brian, this is easy to get around. Surely, we can, if we just know about this, we'll get around it. But there's this really interesting experiment that Solomon Asch did, and he put a bunch of people together in a room, and he said, "Hey," he showed these flashcards, and he said, "Hey, look at the line in Exhibit 1, and tell me which of the lines in Exhibit 2 are the same length as the lines in Exhibit 3." And clearly here we can see that line A is the same length as the line in Exhibit 1. And they were people in a room, and what the people didn't know, or I guess the one individual didn't know, is that everybody in the room except for one person was in on the experiment. So this one person would say, "Hey, it's A," and eventually everyone in the group started saying the wrong thing. They say, "Oh no, clearly B is the same length as Exhibit 1," and the person who was being experimented upon slowly felt pressure to conform to the group. So even though they knew they were giving the wrong answer because everyone else in the group was giving the wrong answer, they agreed, yes, in fact, line B is the same length as Exhibit 1. So there is a tremendous amount of pressure on a group to conform, and you should be really aware of this, even in really simple situations like this where the answer is clear. When you get into situations where the answer isn't clear, it's even more difficult. So what can we do to prevent this? I think, as I said before last week, you need a devil's advocate. You need to ask, "Hey, tell me something I don't want to hear. Tell me where we're going wrong." Maybe we're working as a group. Hey, you know what? Let's go talk to John or Sue down the road, in the other office in a different group, and say, "Hey, we're thinking about this idea. What do you think?" As an outsider, someone that hasn't been kind of pressured into this groupthink, potentially. And then in terms of bad ideas and past failures, you want to say, look, I know your idea, didn't work out last time, or we failed in that regard, but I don't want you to get discouraged. I want you to keep throwing out ideas. Um, they may or may not work. There's not a 100% success rate, but without these other ideas, we're never going to innovate. We're never going to improve. The leader should really remain impartial until the end, right? Hey, we need a solution for this. Maybe completely get out of it. Hey, team, we need a solution for this. I'm going to be completely out of it until you come back with some ideas. And then they can play a little bit of devil's advocate. Or if you're in a group situation, this leader would just say, hey, I want to hear different ideas from everyone. I don't want to give my opinion until the end. And an idea that I think works really well is if you're in this situation, hey, we need to vet this idea. Start with the most junior person on the team. These are often the people that are unwilling or aren't given the opportunity to put their idea out there. So by kind of forcing this, hey, as the most junior person, you're junior, so you have like no fear for putting out some really crazy idea, etc. And it gets you a nice mix of diversified opinions if you do that. So again, I want you to embrace being wrong, but I want you to do it for real. I want you to think about the problems with collaboration and move beyond them. Next week, we'll talk about another idea, and that is, soliciting people outside of your firm entirely. Thanks so much. We'll talk again tomorrow and next week.